3 teeth, 14 years old, cloudy eyes, and a limp that made him wobble across the kennel floor. For 6 months, not one single person stopped at his cage. And then, a 78-year-old woman walked in, looking for nothing in particular, and everything changed for both of them. His name was Gus, a scruffy little Chihuahua mix who'd spent most of his life as somebody's dog, until he wasn't anymore. Nobody at the shelter knew exactly what happened. Maybe his owner passed away. Maybe he just got old and inconvenient. That happens more than you'd think. What the staff did know was this: Gus was the longest resident they had, longer than the puppies who left within days, longer than the young, healthy dogs everyone wanted. He'd watched hundreds of animals come and go from that same kennel, and every single time, he stayed behind. Here's the thing about shelters that most people don't realize. The older and sicker an animal looks, the faster people walk past. It's not cruelty, exactly. It's fear. Fear of vet bills, fear of a short goodbye, fear of loving something that might not last long enough. So the volunteers started calling Gus their heartbreak dog. They loved him fiercely, but they'd stopped hoping. And that's exactly when Eleanor walked through the door. Eleanor wasn't there to adopt, not really. Her husband of 51 years had passed away 4 months earlier, and her daughter thought maybe a walk through the shelter would do her some good, just to look, just to get her out of the house. Eleanor had buried a husband, raised 3 kids, survived a war of her own kind at home, and now she was living in a quiet house that used to be loud. She wasn't looking for a dog. She was looking for a reason to get out of bed the next morning, though she wouldn't have put it that way herself. And here's the part that gets us every time. She didn't stop at the puppies. She didn't stop at the young, bouncy dogs wagging their tails for attention. She walked straight to the back corner, to the kennel nobody photographed for the website, and she crouched down in front of Gus. He didn't jump. He didn't bark. He just looked up at her with those cloudy old eyes and pressed his little body against the cage door, like he'd been waiting for someone to finally stop. The shelter staff tried to gently steer her elsewhere. They mentioned his age. They mentioned the missing teeth, the arthritis, the medication he'd need twice a day for the rest of his life. Eleanor just nodded and asked one question: how long does he have left? Nobody knew for sure. Maybe a year, maybe 2 if he was lucky. And Eleanor said something the volunteers still talk about to this day. She said, "Then I suppose we'd better not waste any of it." She adopted him that same afternoon. Now, you might be wondering what happened next, because taking home a 14-year-old dog with health problems isn't exactly easy.
And you're not going to believe how fast things turned around for both of them. Within 2 weeks, Eleanor's daughter said her mother was laughing again, really laughing, the kind that reaches your eyes. She'd started walking every morning, slow little loops around the block, because Gus needed the movement for his joints. She started cooking again, softening his food into something his 3 remaining teeth could handle. She talked to him constantly, the way you talk to an old friend who understood everything, even if he couldn't answer back. But here's the open question that had everyone at the shelter holding their breath. Would his body hold up? A dog that old, with that many health issues, taken from the only routine he'd known in months. The vet warned Eleanor it could go either way, and for a while it seemed like it might go the hard way. About 3 months in, Gus stopped eating for 2 days straight. Eleanor sat on the kitchen floor with him for hours, just talking, just waiting. And then, slowly, he ate again. He got back up. He wagged that little stub of tail like he had something left to prove. What nobody expected was what came after that scare. Word got around town about the old woman and her 3-toothed dog, the pair nobody thought would last a season. Neighbors started stopping by. The mail carrier started bringing dog treats. A local vet offered discounted checkups for life once she heard the story. Eleanor, who'd spent months eating dinner alone at a table built for 4, suddenly had a house full of visitors again, all because of one small, stubborn, elderly dog who refused to give up. And here's the part that really gets us. It's been over 2 years now. Gus, the dog nobody wanted, the dog given maybe a year to live, is still here. Still wobbling around the backyard, still sleeping curled against Eleanor's hip every single night. The vet calls it a small miracle. Eleanor calls it simple. She says he needed somebody who understood what it feels like to be overlooked because of her age. And she needed somebody who'd remind her that being older doesn't mean you're done loving or being loved. Nobody rescued anybody in this story, not really. They just happened to find each other at the exact right moment. Two old souls nobody else wanted to slow down for. And maybe that's the whole point. The dogs left behind in the back kennels, the ones with gray muzzles and slow steps, they still have so much love left to give. Sometimes it just takes someone who understands exactly what that feels like to notice. If this story warmed your heart even a little, we'd love to hear about the senior pet in your life, the old soul who chose you when nobody else would. Tell us in the comments. And if you believe every old dog deserves a shot at a home like this one, hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps us tell more stories like Gus and Eleanor's.